This episode of the New Hampshire Business Show is sponsored by Everlasting Capital. If you're a small business and you need money and a bank won't give it to you, Everlasting Capital is here to help. In as quickly as a couple of days, you can have the funding your business needs for new equipment or anything else you need the capital for. So submit your application today and see how they can help you out. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the New Hampshire Business Show. My name is Chris Pastrana, and today we're here with Laurie-Ann from Laurie-Ann Associates. How's it going?
It's going well. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic.
Good.
So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for the invite.
Absolutely. I was actually really excited when I saw your thing come up because I checked you out and I'm like, this is going to be fun.
This is going to be fun.
Yeah. So let's get started. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Typical New Englander. Let's start with that. Born and raised here. Started my career off in healthcare and ended up leaving healthcare because of a bad boss. I mean, I'm sure, like, you've never left a job because of a bad boss, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And fell into leadership, because, like, at the hospital that I was working at Leahy Clinic, and one of the departments that I worked in was fabulous. I mean, the energy, the work that we put out. But then I moved over to another department, and oh wow, two different fields. Ended up like really getting into team development, understanding leadership, management better. Like, what was the difference? Like, why was one department so amazing to work in, and the other one was just so blah?
Yeah, kind of draining.
Yeah, and just fell into that and started coaching and speaking and writing a few books on it because I had this belief that leadership is not what you do, it's who you become. That's what all of my talks, my books, everything's written on. And because I just feel that people should enjoy their work. When they enjoy their work, they do better work.
Yeah. Okay. So I find it interesting. You said I fell into leadership. That's a big fall. Like, you want to explain how that kind of came about a little bit?
It's an interesting fall. During the course of, like being in healthcare and then moving over to the corporate medical device side, I had all of New England, and that was actually my last job. And I just saw like the different departments going from hospital to hospital, visiting customers, selling equipment, and that's where I really picked up like what departments were doing well because they were led better. They just had a different energy to them versus going into departments that you could just feel the energy of people who don't love their job.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was an interesting fall.
Yeah, it's interesting. And we kind of talked about it a little beforehand, but we're very similar in that we started off as pretty shy.
Yes.
And then we kind of just stumbled into, stumbled out of ourselves, I should say.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about kind of your, how that happened.
So people always find this so funny and almost, it's hard to believe, but I was actually so painfully shy that I couldn't make eye contact with people. Okay. That's what I was like growing up. And somewhere along the line, like through college, I just knew that this wasn't going to serve me. So literally, like when you think about it now, if somebody doesn't look you in the eye, what do you think? They're holding something back.
Yeah,
you can't trust
kind of
them.
a little socially awkward. You're kind of like, I don't trust them that much.
Yeah, so I mean, if all I was doing was looking down at the floor, so slowly I just like challenged myself. Okay, just make some eye contact for a few seconds, look back down. And so that's how I started to make eye contact. Yeah. And, from there I ended up, believe it or not, I taught aerobics. Okay, so this was my transition to the stage. I was like, wow, so if I could yell at people, to motivate them, I did step aerobics and also spin classes. If I could yell at people to motivate them, certainly I could just talk to them reasonably in front of the room and give them some good information. And after I left my corporate job with no business plan, by the way, no marketing skills, just thought that, if I just put a shingle up, people will come. Yeah, that never happens. I got involved with a few other women because we felt that women network differently. And so let's create a networking group where we can network, but also learn something. So, great ideas. Then they all turned to me and said, you do the speaking. I was like I'm the shy one. But I was like, okay. And that's part of how I started public speaking.
Okay. Kind of thrust into it.
Yeah, so it wasn't very good at first.
Yeah. It never is. It never is. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it kind of like like no beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Just jumped right into my material. And literally, like the ending was like jumping off a cliff. It was just like, okay, I'm done. And if you have any questions, I'll be in the back of the room.
Yeah. Like, peace.
Yep,
see ya.
Done. Get me off of here. And just slowly, like people came up to me and asked me questions and started, inquiring a little bit more. And so that was how I ended up growing my business.
Yeah. That's impressive.
Thanks.
I really like that because whenever I deal with people who are like painfully introverted, like not just a little bit, but it's so bad that it's almost detrimental to their life.
Yeah.
I always get the same kind of excuses, but it's like I was there, like I was that type of person, I think you probably understand that a little bit too.
I do.
It's like, so stop telling me you can't.
Right.
Do something about incrementally changing your life.
Yeah, because you did it.
Yeah.
I did it.
Yeah.
And, I've met people along the way who, like, the exact same thing. I was painfully shy. Or I can learn to be a little more outgoing in the right situations.
Yeah, in a very controlled environment. Mm-hmm. That's why I like the speaking thing. That's why I like the podcast. I can control the scenario enough where it's manageable. I can do it.
Yeah. And it can be fun.
Yeah.
And I think especially when you're yourself. If you try to be somebody else and you're teaching material that you're not familiar with, and it's going to be awkward. But just be yourself. Whatever that is that you bring to the stage, that you bring to the table. If you're funny, be funny on stage. If you're goofy, just be goofy. Just be yourself.
Yeah, that's very good. So, so let's get into it a little bit. So you do professional speaking, and then you teach people how to speak a little better.
I do. I help entrepreneurs and small businesses leverage speaking opportunities so that they can get visible, sign on new clients, customers, and also leverage their intellectual property.
Okay. Yep. So
kind of a mouthful.
Yeah. Because kind of like what I was hinting at earlier, it's fun. Like you went from the healthcare industry and then you jump over to this. So there's a big gap.
Yeah, there is.
It's a very interesting transition. So let's talk about those things and like why that.
So from the healthcare, and when I started my own, I went into life coaching.
Yeah.
And started to do some more speaking, and then decided that I didn't really enjoy the life coaching. That I enjoyed coaching people that were a little bit higher up.
Yeah.
And from there, I started going to National Speaker Association meetings, and all I ever heard there was, write a book, write a book, write a book. So finally, I wrote a book. And then after you write a book, you end up speaking more. So I ended up coaching less.
Yeah.
And then, Tom Asacker, who's here in New Hampshire, he has written a number of books. And one day I remember having a talk with him, and he said, if you write one book, you're not an author. And for some reason, that always stuck with me. Mm-hmm. So I felt like I had to write another book. So a couple of years later, I wrote my next book, which is, the first one's called Rethink Leadership, and the second one is Rethink Your Leadership. Okay. And both of them are written as parables. And so I was very happy just kind of doing my speaking thing, hopping on a plane to get to work. And then one day, somebody asked me if I wrote speeches for people. And my first answer was no. But because I knew who she was, I was like, let's meet for coffee and willing to help you.
Yeah.
She tells me that she's 5 years away from retiring from her government job. 5 years she's had a side hustle. 5 years she's been successfully losing money at her side hustle. Husband says, you can't keep doing this when you retire if you keep losing money. So she reached out to me. I was like, oh, I can teach you how to get booked. Yeah. I can teach you how I write what I call a 3 C's presentation, which is compelling, captivating, and most importantly, converting. And then teach you how to leverage those opportunities into more. Because if I did it for her, then she wouldn't learn anything in the process.
Yeah.
So I ended up falling in love with the process of helping her. And after her first presentation, she got referred to 2 other groups to speak for, and she signed on to 3 new full-paying clients. And I was like, that's a home run.
Yeah.
I wonder if other people would be interested in something like this.
Yeah.
And that's what spawned like this second business. And when I look at, a lot of the executives that I was working with the coaching and the speaking, a lot of them like didn't feel comfortable with speaking. Because the higher up you go, the more meetings you attend, the more presentations that you have to give.
Yeah.
So when I look back on it, I was doing so much. Teaching the executives like, well, here's how you can have a good presentation. Here's how you can prepare for it. So helping entrepreneurs and small businesses just actually seemed like the perfect fit, the perfect transition. It's been a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
Because there's so much to speaking that people don't realize.
Yeah. Yeah. And like we were kind of talking about a little bit beforehand, I always think that having a good career in sales and like some talent in speaking will take you a lot further up the chain than like a college degree. And
yes.
I get a lot of flack for that from my college friends, but I think it's true, because most people fail. Like everyone and their mother has a degree now, but most people can't communicate well.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing a lot of people who they're being passed over for promotions because they're passing up on the speaking opportunities.
Yeah.
Because, if you're moving up the chain, either you're talking to more employees, or you're speaking at either company conferences, having to speak in front of customers.
Yeah.
And those communication skills are huge. I think it's, and I see study after study where it's like the one skill that actually will move you up the ladder and you'll have a great career.
Yeah, absolutely.
Learn the basics.
Yeah.
Make eye contact.
Yeah. You get comfortable talking to people.
Exactly. Yeah. So I was just recently down at the University of Hult at their Boston campus in one of their entrepreneur classes. And so it's like a group of like 50 students from around the globe. And like their final is they have to actually give a pitch for the product that they either want to develop or improve on. And it's fascinating. And so I was brought in to, give them some tips and just to listen and look at some of their pitches. And it's funny how you see the same mistakes in each of them. Yeah. Too many words on their PowerPoint, but they're like sponges. They were quickly changing things.
Yeah. And like most people just don't know. So they, like you said, they make a lot of the same mistakes because it's kind of natural.
And they're following somebody else.
Yeah.
So they either sat in on a presentation and saw lots of words on a PowerPoint and you think that's normal. Standing up there nice and stiff with your note cards, and speaking in a monotone voice. Yeah. They just think, all right, that's how you do it. Especially like, I come from the world of professional speaking, so I see a variety of speakers. Yeah. And, being the speaker, I also I pick up different things. I'm like, oh, I really like that, how they did that, how they transitioned, how they brought in, part of their personality. Yeah. And as a student, unless you see good role models, you're right, you don't know any better. Yeah.
I will say the couple of speaking gigs I've done. Yeah. I never use a PowerPoint. It's hysterical. And they're not the most professional because I'm just being me. Yeah. And I'm a little wacky to begin with, right? So, they're super funny, but you wouldn't be able to use them in a professional setting. But the kids learn a lot.
And that's what you want them to do. You want them to learn. And I think if you're goofy and you're funny, psychologically, that breaks down the barriers. And that's actually when we start learning more. Yeah. So I always tell my clients, when you, in the beginning, if you can have something that's funny, have a funny story, have a funny joke, something that's sort of startling, that makes people lean in a little bit more. Yeah. Then that usually, everybody puts down their phone and they'll be listening to you, which is what you want. You don't want to see the tops of people's heads, in the audience. Yeah. Yeah. Just being yourself. And I'm sure that, your passion comes out.
Good, yeah.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Your passion, your energy, and that just, like your audience, I think they're craving that.
Yeah.
They're craving real people up in front of them instead of, the typical boring monotone. And
Yeah.
then they just kind of, they just check out.
I agree.
I don't think I'm goofy on stage. I think I'm, I've been told that I'm a little polished. But if I forget something, because it happens, like either somebody will ask a question,
Yeah.
and if I have completely forgotten what I was talking about, I will say something. I'll look to the other person and be like, what was I talking about before? I mean, you just make fun of it.
Yeah. I'm probably the opposite. I'm like super unpolished to the point where my professor's like, oh my God, you're going to get me in so much trouble. Like, stop swearing.
Swearing has to be in your contract then.
It's so funny. 'Cause I was an infantryman. Like we swear. Like, it happens. It's just the person I am. It comes out when I'm just sitting joking around. It's funny. But, yeah, it's pretty good. I like it.
It's you.
Yeah. So, yeah, anyway, so we kind of touched on something I thought it was pretty fun. So, things that people are typically doing wrong when they're talking in public. That's probably something you can chime in on.
Well, let's start with an introduction.
Okay.
A lot of times, like especially my clients and students, I encourage them, I'll always ask them, so if I met you at a party or I met you at a networking event, and I said, hey, what do you do? What would you tell me? And a lot of times people will go right into their job title.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, don't give me your job title. Because right now, I don't have a reason to care.
Yeah.
I am a little harsh when it comes to
which is good.
some of this stuff. So I tell people either give me a question, I'll give you an example. When I was doing a lot of leadership speaking, it would be the question that I would ask people: have you ever worked in a department or for a boss that you just couldn't stand?
Mm-hmm.
Most people, or do you know somebody who does? The answer is always yes.
Yeah.
So now you're intrigued because I started off with a question, because a lot of people don't do that.
Yeah.
Or a startling statistic, 83% of people are not happy with their jobs. It's like, yeah. And they might be thinking to themselves, yeah, I'm one of those 83%. Yeah. So you start off with something that makes people lean in. I always tell people your elevator pitch, your introduction should be the headline of the newspaper. So that then I say, really? So that then you give me the subtitle.
Yeah.
So then I say, tell me more. And now I've just gotten permission, as a person speaking, to tell you about the article of the body, which means I now have permission to have 5 to 10 minutes of your time.
Good.
And that it's a nice way just to open the door instead of, well, I'm a lawyer. Well, a lot of people will think, oh, I know what lawyers are like. And then they start to check out. It's like, oh, okay, that's nice. And then they move on to the next person.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I like that.
Headline.
Yeah.
Subtitle.
Yeah. It's pretty good. It's a nice little tip.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So another thing that I think is good, I'm kind of jumping around now, but
this is the best kind of conversation.
Yeah, so you've written a couple of books. Most people, myself included, can't even get through the first one. So what kind of motivates you, or what type of process do you take to get through each one of those?
To write them, or all right, so I guess a couple of things. One, my books are intentionally short.
Okay.
They're short and to the point, and they're also modern day parables.
Okay.
Because I realize that, how many 200 page books are sitting on your nightstand, or maybe they're on your Kindle and you just haven't gotten to them.
Yeah.
I mean, I am guilty of that myself. So I wanted to write a book that would be entertaining, that people would learn from, and it had to be short. And I can't tell you how many people, when they pick up my book, they're just like, oh my God, I'm so glad. It's positive reinforcement, you've read 100 pages.
Yeah.
I read a book.
Yeah.
This is my second book. And the first one's exactly the same. It's a modern day parable about two people who meet in a coffee shop.
Okay.
So it's entertaining to deliver the messages.
Yeah. I like that. So instead of just, what you typically see is someone force feeding you a message, It reads out like a fictional story with a message behind it, kind of.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the first one being Rethink Leadership in the coffee shop. And I picked a coffee shop because how many of us, either go to Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks or any other coffee shop and you see the same people because you're going in at the same time.
Yeah.
So that's why it took place there. And it just happens like, it's just a random meeting of two people.
Yeah.
And then they show up each week and they, the mentor delivers another message, another piece of advice. And so there's 4 pieces of advice in the book, and I'll tell you a couple of them. One's about relationships.
Yeah.
One's about, basically raising your bar, and one's about difficult times. And I'll let you have to read the book to find out what the fourth one is. And I'll also tell you that my first book is non-gender.
Okay.
Nowhere in the book does it say that it's a male or a female.
Mm-hmm.
You'll have to figure that out yourself, why I did that. So this book, Rethink Your Leadership, is a modern-day parable about one man's journey through leadership. Typical, he gets promoted, he's not a good boss, he doesn't know how to, he's got a mentor, but he also has a bunch of other mentors that are right around him that help him become the leader that he needs to be.
Okay.
So I wrote it, I wrote both books exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
And and this is how I even write my presentations. At the end of my presentation or at the end of the book, what do I want my audience or my reader to think, feel, or do? So I have a goal when they close the book. And then, so once I know what the goal is, all right, if that's the goal, what has to be in the book in order to make that happen? So I do this with presentations as well. And so then it comes down to every chapter. Well, they need to know this, this, and this. Okay. Each chapter is written exactly the same way.
Okay. It's pretty good.
It's just, I don't know where it was just been my process, and I share it with people about always, I think it's always, it's like the Stephen Covey, start with the end in mind.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. It's a very unique way of going about the book situation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Most people just kind of jump in and they don't quite know how to go about the process.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
And then they start writing, and it's rather random.
And
I think that's how a lot of people end up writing, these books that go on and on for pages and pages and pages. Yeah. And it's like, just, can I have the Cliff Notes?
Yeah. It's like, this is a 500-page book, and you don't really talk about much.
Right. There's a lot of those books.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen that a lot. I've actually read some books, even personal development ones, that I'm like, you've said the same thing 6 times, maybe we can cut that book in half.
Yeah, exactly. So, I don't know if the goal is to write a book that's 250 pages.
Yeah.
But for me, it was to make sure that people read my book. Because people have asked me, what's the difference between your book and they'll pick up another book. And I'm like, you'll finish mine. Yeah. Because it's entertaining.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of people who just, had some wonderful comments about it too.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, that is a good plug for your book there at the end.
And it's a bestseller on Amazon.
Perfect. Yeah. So people that want to reach out to you, learn a little more, how do they get a hold of you?
They can reach me at either one of my websites, which is Laurie-Ann-Murabito.com or speakandstandout.com.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks. This was wonderful.
Absolutely. So, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Definitely reach out, grab that book, and read it. It sounds really good. I'm going to do it myself. And everyone have a good day.